Um, Imagine waking up tomorrow morning.
Okay.
But, instead of that violent, startling jolt of a blaring alarm clock.
Oh, I hate that sounds.
Yeah.
The endless electronic beeping.
Right. It's the absolute worst. It sends your heart rate through the roof, and your cortisol is spiking before you've even opened your eyes.
Yeah, you're basically in fight or flight before your feet even touch the floor.
Exactly. But imagine instead waking up to a seamlessly architected audio environment, like an acoustic space so perfectly designed that your nervous system never even registers a threat.
Wow. I mean, that fundamentally alters the biological baseline of your entire day.
It really does.
When you use sound to manage that transition, you stop treating the act of waking up like a medical emergency.
Yeah.
You eliminate that initial spike of adrenaline, which means your biology isn't spending the next 4 hours just trying to recover from simply getting out of bed.
Which is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking something incredibly fascinating for you today. We're looking at Category 1 of the 24-hour frequency engine, specifically focusing on the 6-phase frequency protocol.
Also known as the daily flow.
Right, the daily flow. And to really grasp why this protocol is so effective, we have to talk about the creator.
Yes, this is crucial. The creator is an enterprise solutions architect named JHAICEY.
And understanding her background is so important here.
It's the absolute foundation. JC being an enterprise architect isn't just some fun trivia. It is exactly why this system actually works.
Right, because when you hear frequency protocol, it is very easy to just picture like a passive, relaxing Spotify playlist. Something you just throw on in the background while you answer emails.
Yeah, some nice ocean sounds or whatever.
Exactly. But because JC approaches this as a systems architect, this protocol functions entirely differently. It is not a playlist. It is quite literally like deploying a high-level operating system for the human body.
And, I mean, an operating system relies on rigid rules, right? Precise sequencing. Absolute hardware compatibility.
You can't just wing it.
No, you can't. JC looked at the chaotic, often overwhelming world of personal growth and alignment, and she recognized this massive structural flaw. People were trying to force new software onto incompatible hardware. So she structured this protocol like a flawless software deployment.
Which perfectly brings us to the core philosophy driving this entire system, because JC operates on one primary mandate, and I love this. She says, wealth is not a number in a bank account. It is a frequency in the nervous system.
That is such a profound paradigm shift.
It really is.
What she's articulating is that you can have all the conscious desire, right? All the vision boards, the willpower, all of that. But if your nervous system is trapped in a state of chronic threat...
If your biology fundamentally feels unsafe.
Exactly. If it feels unsafe, you will subconsciously repel expansion. Your brain will literally view new opportunities as risks.
Because it's trying to protect you.
Always. So this protocol is fiercely focused on nervous system safety. It uses highly specific acoustic engineering to biologically trick the amygdala.
That's the brain's primal threat detection center, right?
Yeah, the alarm system. It tricks it into a baseline of total calm.
So our mission for this deep dive is break down the neurobiology of this 24-hour cycle. And we're going to use some everyday IT and hardware analogies to show you exactly how the mechanics of this work.
Because it's not magic.
No, shifting your reality using this system is as logical and undeniable as updating your laptop's software.
Well, any seasoned IT professional will tell you that before you can install massive high-performance wealth software, you have to verify the hardware.
Meaning your physical body and your brainwave states.
Right. You have to make sure the hardware is prepped, protected, and actually capable of running the code. If the hardware is compromised, the software crashes.
So let's get into those hardware requirements. JC lays out 3 non-negotiable rules for operating these frequency beds. Rule number 1 is that you must use stereo headphones for the phases that require them.
Yeah, and that goes way beyond just getting better sound quality.
Right. From what I read, it has nothing to do with audio fidelity.
None at all. It has everything to do with a neurological mechanism called spatial isolation.
Okay, break that down for us.
So, the acoustic engineering in these specific tracks relies on sending a slightly different frequency to your left ear than to your right ear. For instance, the left ear might get a tone at, say, 400 hertz, while the right ear gets a tone at 410 hertz.
And the brain has to somehow make sense of that gap.
Precisely. The brain physically cannot process those 2 different tones simultaneously without forcing the left and right hemispheres to communicate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to bridge that gap, the brain actually creates its own internal third tone, like a phantom beat of 10 hertz.
That's incredible.
It is, and this forces the entire brain into a synchronized state. But if you play that track out of your laptop speakers, the frequencies just mix in the air before they ever reach your ears.
So the spatial isolation is destroyed.
Completely destroyed. The hemispheres don't sync up, and the biohack basically fails.
That makes perfect sense. You have to deliver those data streams separately.
Exactly.
Now, rule number 2 is about timing. The protocol dictates that you have to allow 7 to 10 minutes for brainwave entrainment to actually take hold.
Entrainment is such a fascinating physics principle.
It really is. It's the physical phenomenon where a chaotic rhythm naturally synchronizes with a more powerful, dominant rhythmic frequency in its environment.
Right.
I always picture a room full of old-school pendulum clocks.
Oh, that's a great visual.
Yeah, like if you walk into that room and start them all swinging at completely different chaotic times, they look like a total mess. But the physics of the vibration moving through the walls and the air will eventually force all those pendulums to swing in perfect, synchronized harmony.
But it doesn't happen the second you start them.
No, it takes time for the physics to override the chaos. For the human brain, catching that chaotic rhythm and steering it into alignment takes about 7 to 10 minutes.
That's exactly it. You are waiting for the physics of the audio to overpower the scattered electrical impulses of your brain. You simply have to provide the biological runway for that to happen.
Which leads us to the third hardware rule, and honestly, this seems to be the most critical piece of the physical prep.
The 528 hertz mandate.
Yes. Never skip the 528 hertz layer. To really understand why this matters, I like to think about an anxious, stressed out nervous system like an overheating server room.
Oh, that is so accurate.
You know, you have 50 heavy programs running at once. The physical fans are just screaming, the processors are completely maxed out, and the entire system is just like on the verge of a catastrophic crash.
And that is a flawless depiction of what chronic stress looks like at a cellular level.
It's just too much heat.
Yeah, your cortisol is spiking, your inflammation is up, your cells are literally degrading. And that is exactly why the 528 hertz layer is a mandatory mandate in JAICEY's architecture.
It functions as the biological repair layer, right?
Yes. In your server analogy, 528 hertz is the liquid cooling system.
So it's actively pulling the heat out of the hardware.
It physically lowers the biological temperature. Studies on 528 hertz show that it has this incredible ability to reduce cortisol levels and restore autonomic nervous system balance. It clears out the energetic cache of daily friction. It soothes the hardware so that when you finally ask it to run demanding manifestation software, the system doesn't fry.
Okay, so the hardware is prepped, the stereo isolation is active, the liquid cooling is running. We are finally ready to initiate the system boot up.
Let's do it.
Let's walk through the chronological sequence, starting with phase 1, the morning bed. Now, this happens the literal moment you wake up, and it lasts for about 15 to 30 minutes.
The overarching objective here is to capture what JAICEY calls the hypnagogic window.
Which is such a cool term.
It is, and from a neurobiological standpoint, this window is highly programmable. Because when you first wake up, your brain doesn't instantly snap into high gear.
Right.
It slowly ascends from delta waves, which dictate deep restorative sleep, up into theta waves.
That's that dreamy, blurry state where you barely know what day it is.
Exactly. And then finally into alpha, which is a state of very relaxed focus.
It's that groggy halfway point.
Yeah.
And normally, we just absolutely shatter that delicate window.
Oh, completely.
We hit the alarm, we grab our phones, and we immediately flood our brains with emails and the news and obligations.
And by doing that, you bypass alpha and theta entirely. You just slam your brain into high alert beta waves.
Which triggers the amygdala immediately.
Yes.
I tend to picture the amygdala as this fiercely protective, hyperactive guard dog that lives in the center of your brain.
It's exactly what it is.
Its only job is to scan for predators. So when you wake up abruptly, that dog is instantly barking at everything. Bills, traffic, deadlines.
But by soaking in this 888 hertz frequency for 15 to 30 minutes before you even look at a screen, you are essentially tossing that guard dog a premium calming treat.
You are telling the threat detection center, we are safe, before it even realizes it's fully awake.
You are feeding it safety. And what takes this from just, passive relaxation to active programming is the conscious alignment step.
Right. This is introduced at the 10-minute mark of this phase.
Exactly. Once the entrainment has really taken hold, you sit up, you stretch, and you physically agree with the engineered lyrics in the track.
Which state everything I touch is gold and true.
Right. You are anchoring the physical bodily habit of waking up to the psychological feeling of absolute abundance,
You're booting the system in a state of wealth rather than a state of deficit.
which is the ideal foundation for phase two.
The midday power surge.
Yes. This block runs from roughly 10:00 a.m. to 1:00 p.m. Because while we have to transition out of that dreamy morning state, ultimately you have to interact with the real world.
Right, you have to execute. So this phase introduces tracks like the confidence anchor and the action loop, and the acoustic architecture completely shifts here to support that execution.
It really does. To support active manifestation and demanding cognitive tasks, these tracks utilize faster beats per minute, or BPM, and much sharper transients.
Remind me, a transient is the punchy start of a sound, right?
Exactly. It's the immediate start of a sound. Think of the sharp, sudden crack of a snare drum or like a really crisp hi-hat.
Got it.
These specific acoustic triggers elevate your heart rate just enough to keep your prefrontal cortex, the logical executive function of your brain, locked onto your goals. It prevents that midday mental drift by just keeping the brain gently stimulated.
Now, I see the logic there, but this is where I actually have to push back a bit on the source material.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so in this midday phase, there is a track specifically called the high-frequency lunch. And I have to be honest, the idea of trying to actively manifest abundance while I'm just trying to eat a turkey sandwich, it sounds exhausting. I mean, isn't that overkill?
I completely get why you'd say that. It sounds like an unnecessary optimization, for sure. But it is actually solving a very specific biological hardware problem.
Okay, how so?
When you consume food, the digestive process forces your parasympathetic nervous system to take over. Blood rushes to your stomach, and the brain is essentially starved of energy.
Oh, that's what causes that heavy post-meal lethargy.
Yes, the classic 2.0 p.m. food coma.
But doesn't the system need to power down to digest? Like, if we are pumping in high-frequency audio, aren't we just overloading the brain with constant noise? When do we actually get silence and acoustic hygiene?
That is a crucial distinction. The high-frequency lunch track isn't some blaring, intense motivational speech. It isn't overloading your cognitive processing at all.
Okay.
It is a subtle, structural, acoustic rhythm designed to maintain the nervous system's baseline momentum. It sustains your energetic altitude so that you don't experience a massive plunging crash.
Well, it's...
By keeping that baseline steady, you don't have to rely on a huge, violent spike of cortisol or, a triple shot of espresso to reboot your system an hour later.
Right.
It is actually an act of acoustic hygiene because it's preventing the erratic highs and lows.
Okay, I see the distinction there. It's about preventing the crash, not forcing more productivity.
Exactly.
But let's follow the biology for a second. If you've been running hot and executing all morning, that friction has to go somewhere.
Oh, inevitably.
Frustrating emails, delayed meetings, minor annoyances, they build up in the system's cache. And if we don't dump that cache, our cortisol is going to spike again by the afternoon anyway.
And if you don't actively clear it, the stress from a bad Tuesday morning bleeds directly into your Tuesday evening.
Which is exactly where phase 3 comes in, the afternoon reset.
Running between 1:00 p.m. and 3:00 p.m.
Right. This is a dedicated 12 to 15-minute window that relies entirely on brainwave entrainment, which means this is the point in the day where those stereo headphones are absolutely non-negotiable again.
Yes. This phase acts as a preventative maintenance cycle. To carry your IT analogy forward, this is where you clear the temporary internet files and you empty the trash bin.
Just wiping the slate clean.
You are wiping the energetic whiteboard clean so the system can release the friction of execution and pivot back toward a state of receptivity.
Which brings us to arguably the most critical environmental transition of the day. Phase 4, identity shift, also known as the evening bed.
This happens between 6:00 p.m. and 8:00 p.m.
And the entire physical environment must shift here.
It has to. JC mandates a strict screen detox. You bring the physical lighting down, and the audio engineering starts utilizing heavy, low-pass filters.
Let's unpack the why behind that, because a low-pass filter essentially muffles or removes sharp treble sounds, right?
That's right.
Why does muffling treble matter so much to the brain?
It all comes back to evolutionary biology. High-pitched, sharp frequencies mimic the snap of a twig in the forest or a baby's cry or an animal screeching.
Things that demand attention.
Exactly. Evolutionarily, treble signifies an immediate threat or an urgent demand. Low-frequency rumbles, on the other hand, like distant thunder or the hum of a fire, those signify safety.
So by removing the treble, You literally remove the audio triggers that tell the amygdala to stay on guard.
You're creating an acoustic safe haven.
Plus, the tempo drops significantly to 50 BPM, and the tracks use this heavy sub-bass that you can physically feel resonating in your chest.
Oh, it's powerful.
The analogy I kept coming back to while reviewing this is driving a manual transmission car.
Okay, I like that.
If you've been zooming down the highway in fifth gear at 70 miles per hour all day, you cannot just pull into your driveway and slam the gear shift into park.
No, you will absolutely destroy the transmission.
You have to step down the gears. Fourth gear, third, second, first, and then neutral.
And this 50 BPM tempo, paired with that deep sub-bass, it forces that exact biological downshift.
It triggers the alpha-theta bridge.
It literally walks your brainwaves down from high alert beta execution into a state of heavy, profound relaxation. But, the absolute magic of this evening downshift is Mandate 5.
The Daily Alignment Journal.
Yes. This is the exact moment where the biological hardware and the software of your identity truly merge.
We have to talk about how this journal is framed because when someone hears daily alignment log, it kind of sounds like tedious homework.
It really does. It sounds like a chore.
But JC's notes frame this practice with such incredible warmth. It is so uplifting and encouraging. It feels genuinely joyous to do. But neurologically, it's actually a highly calculated mechanism for positive reinforcement.
It is a beautiful celebratory process, but yes, it is deeply scientific. It is not a traditional diary where you vent about your frustrations or, outline your anxieties for the day.
No, it operates as an empowering system diagnostic.
The core prompts you answer while listening to that deep sub-bass is simply, did I act as my new result today?
Which is a psychological technique called future pacing, right?
Exactly. You are evaluating your day, not from the perspective of the stressed out person you used to be, but from the identity of the highly aligned, successful person you are actively becoming.
And you use the journal to actively track what JC calls magnetic fact echoes.
I love that term.
These are the tangible, real-world pieces of evidence that the system is working. An unexpected compliment from a boss, sudden clarity on a complex problem, or even just a random check in the mail.
By actively documenting these echoes, you are engaging your reticular activating system. That's the part of the brain that filters information.
You are physically providing your nervous system with undeniable proof.
Yes, you are showing your biology, look, this new reality is incredibly safe. It is highly rewarding. The code is working.
And when the biology sees that documented proof, it finally drops its armor.
You are giving it permission to relax.
And because this system diagnostic has proven to your biology that it is entirely safe, you can finally stop doing. You no longer have to manage your reality. You just hand the wheel entirely over to automated background processes.
Which beautifully ushers in phase 5, the bedtime bed.
This is a 15 to 20-minute acoustic handoff right when the lights go out.
And the tempo here is incredibly sluggish, just 40 BPM.
That specific tempo is engineered to physically override your active daytime heart rate, isn't it?
It is, because your body naturally wants to entrain to the dominant rhythm it hears. So a 40 BPM track acts as an acoustic anchor, basically dragging your heart rate and your respiration down to match it.
And while the audio is slowing your heart, you practice a visualization called the gold breath.
Right.
You visualize inhaling abundance, which correlates to the 888 hertz frequency in the track, and exhaling the day's friction. But there is a specific instruction during the chorus of this track that I wanted to ask about.
Sure.
You are told to consciously release the how, to explicitly tell your brain, I am no longer responsible for the logistics.
Yes.
Doesn't that risk making the listener passive? I mean, doesn't it feel a bit like giving up?
I can see why it sounds like that, but it is the exact opposite of giving up. It is a calculated, active release of cognitive load.
Okay. Think back to the computer analogy. If you leave 50 demanding applications open with unsaved documents and active downloads, when you put your computer to sleep, what happens?
The fans keep spinning and the battery drains.
Exactly. By telling your brain that the frequency is the architect now, you are consciously closing all those active applications. You are telling your executive function that it is officially off the clock, allowing the biological system to truly power down.
Oh, I love that. You are closing the mental tab so the RAM can clear.
Precisely.
That perfectly sets up the final sequence. Phase 6, deep sleep rewire.
The subconscious lockdown.
Yes. For the next 7 to 8 hours, while you are submerged in deep delta wave sleep, your brain just marinates in pure instrumental 888 hertz frequency.
The goal here is to hard code that new result directly into your identity while you sleep, but there is a brilliant failsafe engineered into this phase.
The track does have lyrics, right? A very soft voice repeating, the blueprint is set. But those lyrics only play for the first 15 to 20 minutes as you drift off. Yes. And this is where JC's granular understanding of neurobiology is just so impressive to me. If words continued to play all night long, even just a soft, reassuring whisper, your brain's language processing centers, specifically Wernicke's and Broca's areas, would stay on high alert.
Because the brain hears language and immediately wants to decode it.
Exactly. Even in sleep, your brain would be actively translating and monitoring those words, and that active language processing would physically block you from entering restorative, deep delta sleep.
Your brain would be too busy working to actually rest.
Right. So after 20 minutes, the track automatically switches to pure instrumental frequency.
Zero language to process.
Just pure acoustic vibration. It is a seamless, uninterrupted firmware update for your subconscious.
It allows the new behavioral code to integrate deeply into your neural pathways without triggering a single ounce of conscious resistance.
It's brilliant.
When you zoom out and really look at the architecture of what JC has built here, it is staggering.
It really is.
She has taken the concept of personal growth and alignment, which, let's be honest, for most of us feels like an exhausting, conscious, mental chore.
Oh, absolutely. Constantly policing our thoughts, fighting our anxiety.
Yes, and she has transformed it into an automated biological background operating system.
You simply run the code, adhere to the hardware rules, and the physics of the audio does the heavy lifting for you.
For you listening, imagine the sheer relief of that. You don't have to force reality to change. You don't have to white-knuckle your way to success or constantly battle your own mind. You just have to provide your nervous system with the acoustic safety and the biological grace to adapt to a new baseline of wealth.
It is entirely about creating an internal environment where your biology feels safe enough to thrive.
But, unpacking all these mechanics, looking at how incredibly sensitive our brains are to sound, it actually leaves me with a chilling yet totally fascinating final thought for you to ponder.
Ooh, I love where this is going.
We have spent this entire deep dive looking at the undeniable neurobiology of sound. We've seen how deeply and effectively an engineered 40 BPM track or a targeted 528 Hertz frequency can physically rewire our biology for wealth, safety, and calm. It works.
Yeah.
The science backs it up.
Unquestionably, the entrainment is a physical fact.
So, if our nervous systems are this responsive, if our biology is this porous to the audio environment, what are the accidental sounds in our everyday lives secretly programming our subconscious to do?
Oh, wow. That is a massive question.
Think about the ambient noise you tolerate every single day. The unpredictable blaring noise of city traffic outside your apartment window. The low, constant grinding hum of the appliances in your kitchen.
Or the television in the next room looping a 24-hour news cycle built entirely on crisis and panic.
Exactly. Those are ambient alarms. You might tune them out consciously, but your amygdala is constantly registering them as low-level threats.
If our brains are constantly entraining to the rhythms around us, what accidental code have you been leaving on loop without even realizing it?
It makes you realize that acoustic hygiene isn't just some luxury for people who meditate. It is a fundamental biological requirement for a healthy nervous system.
It really is. You have to guard your ears as fiercely as you guard your time.
You really do. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the daily flow. Be mindful of the frequencies you're letting run in your background, and we will see you next time.